Namaskar, and this is Midday Prime. We bring you news and updates from India and the world, and from the world of business and sports. And in focus is the Defence Minister's statement on the restoration of status quo ante in Ladakh, and also the respect for the LAC. Let's begin with the big news at this hour. The Indian and Chinese forces agreed to disengage in the north and south banks of the Pangong Tso Lake. India to keep its troops at its permanent base near Finger 3. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on disengagement says that there are still some outstanding issues with regard to deployment and patrolling at some other points along the LAC in eastern Ladakh. These will be the focus of further discussions with the Chinese side. Remembering Pandit Deendayal Upadhyaya on his death anniversary, Prime Minister Narendra Modi says his thoughts are very contemporary and will forever be available, emphasizing that Rashtra always takes precedence over Rajniti. Rashtra is a national ideology. It overtakes politics. Moving on, Union Minister for Law and Information Technology, Ravi Shankar Prasad, says that the government action will be taken if social media is misused to spread fake news, violence. It says that double standards by social media platforms are not acceptable. Home Minister Amit Shah is on a West Bengal visit, launching the fourth phase of the Parivartan Yatra. He says that the Yatra aims to replace violence with development. India becomes the fastest in the world to reach 70 lakh vaccinations against COVID-19 in only 26 days. 17 states, union territories report no COVID-19 death in the last 24 hours. India's active cases per million population amongst the lowest globally. Made in India Covishield vaccine gets authorization for emergency use in Argentina. The drug regulator, the agency there, ANMAT, it says that it's of the South American country, it's approved the vaccine. United States announces freezing of $1 billion funds to Myanmar government. The US President Joe Biden said that the first round of targets will be identified this week. So let's begin with the big story. India and China have agreed to disengage in the eastern Ladakh sector, and the formal process has already begun since Wednesday. The Defence Minister Rajnath Singh made a statement announcing the same in the Rajya Sabha, and he informed the House that the decision to disengage is being implemented and both the countries have agreed to follow it. Rajnath Singh gave the details of the disengagement in his statement. First, both parties must agree on LAC and respect it. Secondly, there shouldn't be an attempt to change the status quo unilaterally and also by any party. Thirdly, all the compromises, they should be completely agreed upon by both parties. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has said this.
हमारे इस अप्रोच तथा सस्टेन्ड टॉक्स के फलस्वरूप चीन के साथ पैंगोंग लेक के नॉर्थ एवं साउथ बैंक पर डिसएंगेजमेंट का समझौता हो गया है और इस बात पर भी सभापति महोदय इस बात पर भी सहमत हो गई है कि पैंगोंग लेक से पूर्व पैंगोंग लेक से पूर्ण डिसएंगेजमेंट के 48 आवर्स के अंदर सीनियर कमांडर स्तर की बातचीत हो तथा बाकी बचे हुए मुद्दों पर भी हल निकाला जाए। सभापति महोदय, पैंगोंग लेक एरिया में चीन के साथ डिसएंगेजमेंट का जो समझौता हुआ है उसके अनुसार दोनों पक्ष फॉरवर्ड डिप्लॉयमेंट को फेज्ड, कोऑर्डिनेटेड एंड वेरीफाइड मैनर में हटाएंगे। चीन अपनी सेना की टुकड़ियों को नॉर्थ बैंक में फिंगर 8 के पूरब की दिशा की तरफ रखेगा और इसी तरह भारत भी अपनी सेना की टुकड़ियों को फिंगर 3 के पास अपने परमानेंट बेस धन सिंह थापा पोस्ट पर रखेगा। इसी तरह की कार्रवाई साउथ बैंक एरिया में भी दोनों पक्षों द्वारा की जाएगी। ये कदम आपसी समझौते के तहत बढ़ाए जाएंगे तथा जो भी निर्माण आदि दोनों पक्षों द्वारा अप्रैल 2020 से नॉर्थ एंड साउथ बैंक पर किया गया है उन्हें हटा दिया जाएगा और पुरानी स्थिति कायम कर दी जाएगी। सभापति महोदय, यह भी तय हुआ है कि दोनों पक्ष नॉर्थ बैंक पर अपनी सेना की गतिविधियां, जिसमें परंपरागत स्थानों की पेट्रोलिंग भी सम्मिलित है, को अस्थायी रूप से स्थगित रखेंगे। पेट्रोलिंग तभी शुरू की जाएगी जब सेना एवं राजनयिक स्तर पर यानी डिप्लोमेटिक लेवल पर आगे बातचीत करके समझौता बनेगा। इस समझौते पर कार्रवाई कल से नॉर्थ एंड साउथ बैंक पर प्रारंभ हो गई है। यह उम्मीद है इसके द्वारा पिछले साल के गतिरोध से पहले जैसी स्थिति बहाल हो जाएगी। सभापति महोदय, मैं इस सदन को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि इस बातचीत में हमने कुछ भी खोया नहीं है। सभापति महोदय।
Well, Rajnath Singh also stated that the Indian forces acted with courage, valor, and they displayed exemplary grit and determination to ward off any danger to the sovereignty of the country. And he said that China has been made aware that India wants a lasting solution to this issue based on 3 broad topics.
पिछले वर्ष से मिलिट्री एंड डिप्लोमेटिक लेवल पर चीन के साथ हमारा संबंध बना रहा है। इस बातचीत में हमने चीन को यह बताया है कि 3 सिद्धांतों के आधार पर हम इस समस्या का समाधान चाहते हैं। फर्स्ट, दोनों पक्षों द्वारा एलएसी को माना जाए और उसका आदर किया जाए। दूसरा, किसी भी पक्ष द्वारा यूनिलेटरली स्टेटस को बदलने का प्रयास न किया जाए। तीसरा, सभी समझौतों का दोनों पक्षों द्वारा पूर्ण रूप से पालन किया जाए।
And the defense minister further said that there are some outstanding issues that will be sorted out bilaterally as soon as possible. He praised the courage and the determination of the Indian armed forces who endured the harsh climate of the region but did not budge from their task. He also said that the high-level meetings have taken place and China has been made aware that peace and tranquility are affected due to such incidents.
पिछले वर्ष से चीन के द्वारा उठाए गए कदमों के कारण पीस एंड ट्रैंक्विलिटी पर प्रतिकूल असर पड़ा है। इसके फलस्वरूप चीन और भारत के संबंधों पर भी प्रभाव पड़ा है। उच्च स्तर पर चीन के साथ कई बार बातचीत के दौरान, जिसमें मेरे द्वारा चीनी रक्षा मंत्री के साथ पिछले सितंबर की बैठक और मेरे सहयोगी विदेश मंत्री श्री जयशंकर जी की चीनी विदेश मंत्री के साथ तथा हमारे एनएसए श्री अजीत जी डोभाल की अपने चीनी काउंटर पार्ट के साथ बातचीत शामिल है। हमने यह स्पष्ट कर दिया है सभापति महोदय कि यह अत्यंत आवश्यक है कि एलएसी के सभी फ्रिक्शन पॉइंट पर डिसएंगेजमेंट किया जाए ताकि पीस एंड ट्रैंक्विलिटी पुनः स्थापित हो सके।
The House Chairman, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, he exhorted the House to speak in one voice on this issue.
I want to make only one appeal to the entire House, to all parties. This is not a political matter. It's a national interest. Please let us be seen that we are speaking with one voice.
So let's put into context then what the Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, had said. We look at disengagement on the LAC, both de-escalation and Ladakh. Rajnath Singh on disengagement. Both India and China will remove the forward deployments in a phased manner, in a coordinated manner, and in a verified manner. Also, the Indian troops, they will pull back to their permanent, that's the Dhan Singh Thapa post, that's near Finger 3. And China will keep its troops in the east direction, Finger 8, on the north bank. So what does this actually mean? A similar agreement will be done in the south bank, and whatever construction is done since April 2020 in the north and the south bank, they will be removed and the old situation comes back, which is status quo ante. And it has been decided that the activities by both these countries, India and China, the troops, they will be further restricted. Patrolling will start only after the diplomatic talks between the two sides takes place. So Rajnath Singh, of course, made the 3 pointers, which we've already spoken about, but we also heard him say that. But these are the 3 pointers. Rajnath Singh has informed China to resolve the issue based on these 3 points. These 3 points are: the first point is both India and China should follow and respect the line of actual control, and no one should unilaterally change the status quo. Also, all the rules should be followed by the troops of both countries. So that is, in a nutshell, what exactly has happened between India and China. And to put this into context, we are joined by Amritpal Singh, who's our correspondent who covers international affairs and the Ministry of External Affairs. Well, Amrit, how important is this, this statement and the disengagement that is now being embarked upon?
Mark, could you please repeat the last part of your question?
I said, how important is this, this statement and the disengagement that has been embarked upon?
It's very, very important, Mark. It's very significant. This is what both sides had been trying to achieve. But of course, there were differences of perception. And this standoff became a protracted standoff, even turning bloody and violent at times. Yes. We saw the incident of June 16th, but last year. But so there have been minor skirmishes along the friction along the LAC at the friction points. It was becoming a sort of protracted standoff, which was having repercussions on the relations between the two countries.
Indeed.
It's very, very good news that the agreement has been reached for disengagement. Though there have been multiple rounds of talks. As the defense minister said, there have been 9 rounds of talks at the military level, at the corps commanders level, brigade commanders level. Talks have happened. At the political leadership level, the talks have happened. The defense ministers have spoken. The foreign ministers have spoken. The SRs, or the special representatives, that's NSA Ajit Doval and his counterpart in China. Have
Amrit, you've talked about all these the different levels of talks that have taken place. What led to the breakthrough? Because it looked like this was going on for some time. Has there been a change in the understanding of geopolitics? Post-COVID, the scenario is changing. India's emergence, in a sense, post-COVID. Have the Chinese sort of, reassessed their position?
I think 2 factors led to the Chinese agreeing to see reason. Because India has been consistently saying, let's, the 3 principles that the defense minister put out, let's respect the LAC till the border is resolved between the SRs. Let us respect, let us sit where we are and do it in a mutually coordinated manner. Even if patrolling has to go on, it should go on the way it was going on pre-April. Now, but the Chinese did not want to concede. They thought that is their territory. India did not agree with their claim. I think what bared upon the Chinese is, one, the Indian army standing up to them. I think their assessment of the PLA was that the Indian army would whittle down, would not stand up to them, but the Indian army stood up to them. And secondly, I think you're right, the pandemic played a very important part. China saw it's losing the narrative in the international, at the international fora, where their handling of the pandemic, how it originated from Wuhan, had a bearing. And in difficult times like this, when the world needed to act together, the Chinese was being seen as aggressors by the world. We've seen statements come out of the White House, even the administration before this, that's the Trump administration, made statements to that effect. We've seen other countries, important members of the P5, make statements to that effect. So China was a realization dawned upon China that it was getting isolated in this affair. Its good friend Russia, also when the foreign ministers and the defense ministers met in Moscow, bared upon China to see reason and talk to India. So when the Chinese saw they're losing international support, and also it wasn't leading anywhere. The Chinese thought that the Indians would whittle down. The Chinese would keep coming in if they hold their ground for a while. But after a protracted standoff of 1 year, when the Indian army held to positions that they held on to, and they amassed the troops and ammunition in equal measure, they responded to the Chinese aggression by putting up a sort of defense wall of an equal proportion. I think the Chinese military leadership, the Chinese political leadership, and its diplomatic leadership understood that this is a very different India they are dealing with than what they had dealt in the past.
Thanks very much, Amrit, for those inputs, and joining us for a further analysis of this, we have with us Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, eminent former member of the armed forces. Thanks for being with us, General Kulkarni. So, as Amrit was saying, it's really the Indian armed forces holding its own for 10 months that has made the Chinese see reason that they are dealing with a different India.
Absolutely, Mark. I think Amrit summed it up very well. And let me tell you, it is definitely what you had said initially. It is the grit, determination, resolve at all levels, be it at political level, be at diplomatic level, be at military level, that has stood. And definitely the Raksha Mantri undoubtedly gave credit to all of it for laying the foundation for the disengagement that has commenced yesterday. I think if it hadn't been for what we had done, the Chinese were totally taken by surprise. It's a welcome step. But having just said that it is a welcome step, Chinese are not to be trusted. They have not respected the LAC. They have never ever, they have thrown all the agreements to the wind. They have unilaterally changed the status quo. Having done what they have done, I think definitely the Chinese can walk the talk, and all that is verifiable. By all means, yes, it's a welcome step, and definitely it speaks volumes of the determination, it speaks volumes of the courage, it speaks volumes of the resolve of the political leadership and also the military leadership to stand and be able to give China an absolute hell for leather until and unless the Chinese can only be treated from a position of strength. And that must be understood, and that the Chinese have probably understood, Mark.
Indeed. So disengagement, one needs to understand, it's not really letting your guard down. It is gauging the situation as it is, and we are in a position that, we are not really moving back or retreating in any way. We are moving to status quo ante, and then letting these agreements that have already been agreed upon come into play, and then try and sort out the border issue. That is what we are trying to do. How would you assess, the current capabilities in terms of our armed forces over these last 10 months? Have we actually been scaling up?
Over a period of last 10 months, despite Chinese taking us by surprise, the way we mobilized, the way we've been able to withstand there was no way the Chinese could bully us. And that is what I would say. Be it in the Air Force, be it the armed forces, be it even in the Indian Ocean, our capacities and capabilities have risen to a level where the Chinese now need to think as to, and they themselves must be regretting what they did. They probably did not understand that they thought that India might crumble. The resolve shown by India in the last 10 months is something very, very creditable and speaks volumes of the capacity building that we've been able to do. Just not that, China seems to be isolated in the entire world. All the democracies are getting together to be able to tell China that refrain from expansionism, refrain from doing what you're doing in the South China Sea or the Eastern Ladakh, refrain from all these activities. Probably, I hope, again I said, I sincerely hope China has seen reason and they would walk the talk and not let the situation go beyond a certain thing. This is the first step, the disengagement, leading to de-escalation, then leading to peace and tranquility. And that alone will ensure good bilateral relations. I think it is because of the capacity building, it is because of the resolve shown, and it is because despite the adverse climatic conditions, minus 45 degrees temperature, altitudes that are absolutely beyond 18,000, and the way we have been able to withstand and stand up to China, the Chinese have probably crumbled. And I see that as one of the major reasons why the Chinese have decided to accept and disengage.
And what do you think are the regional implications of something like this? Because India has been a net security provider, and now perhaps India's responsibility in this context would increase.
Mark, definitely what you just said is the most important thing. I would personally say Chinese wanted to discredit India in the entire geostrategic location and to be able to show itself as the only leader and the only country that can be able to be, be benevolent to the countries, be a wolf warrior. What India has done, and now if the disengagement happens the way it has been planned on, I personally feel that yes, India will be seen as one of those security providers in the region. India will be seen with a lot of respect. Even in the COVID thing, you just look at the way the entire thing has been shown. The complete COVID, the vaccines that have been accepted, the entire world itself shows India in a great respectable position, number one. And secondly, even in the aspects, when you look at security provider, be it in the Indian Ocean, be it anywhere and everywhere, I think our image has gone up in the entire world.
Thanks very much, General Kulkarni. Thanks for being with us and helping us understand that story a little better. Moving on then to our next story, which is our developing story now. Well, search for a developing story. Search for workers missing in a flooded tunnel after a part of the remote Himalayan glacier broke away into the fourth day. On Thursday, rescuers raced to free around 35 Indian construction workers who were missing since the disaster happened. And as the death toll from that disaster reached 32, more than 172 people still remain unaccounted for since Sunday's disaster in Uttarakhand. Most of them, in fact, workers at the Tapovan Vishnu Gad hydroelectric project and at the smaller Rishi Ganga Dam, which was swept away by the torrent. So rescuers there they were focused on saving lives, on saving people who were stuck in the flooded tunnel connected to the 520 megawatt Tapovan project, deploying heavy excavators to remove water and slush.
जो ड्रिलिंग के लिए जा रहे थे नीचे 12 मीटर, वो 6 मीटर प्लस पे जाके कहीं रुक गया काम, क्योंकि उसका ड्रिल टूटा है, तो हम उसको रिप्लेस करेंगे। और तब फिर हम इसको जो आगे जो पहले से टनल को खोल रहे थे, बड़ी टनल को, उसको खोलने का जो काम है वो जारी रखेंगे। 34 में से 10 आइडेंटिफाई हुई हैं। बाकी भी सभी परिवारजनों से हमारे जो ऑफिसर्स हैं, डीआईजी लॉ एंड ऑर्डर हैं, हमारे एसपी रुद्रप्रयाग हैं, चमोली हैं, उनके जो व्हाट्सएप नंबर पे डेड बॉडीज शेयर की जा रही है, उनकी फोटोज, उसी के माध्यम से पहचान होती जा रही है। कुछ बॉडीज पहचान की स्टेट में नहीं है, तो डीएनए हम जो भी नहीं पहचानी जाएगी 100% का डीएनए रख रहे हैं।
Now moving on to our prime segment, National Prime. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has stated that the government always keeps the welfare of the masses in mind when the government takes any decision. He added that if given a choice, the party will always choose Rashtra-niti, that is, or the nation over Rajniti, that is politics. The Prime Minister was addressing the MPs, the party MPs, on the occasion of Samarpan Divas, which is the death anniversary of the party ideologue, that's the BJP's ideologue, the founding member, Pandit Deendayal Upadhyaya.
हमारी राजनीति में भी राष्ट्र नीति सर्वोपरि है। हमें राजनीति और राष्ट्र नीति में से एक स्वीकार करना होगा, तो हमें संस्कार मिले हैं राष्ट्र नीति को स्वीकार करना, राजनीति को नंबर 2 पे रखना। जो निर्णय देश में बहुत कठिन माने जाते थे, राजनीतिक रूप से मुश्किल माने जाते थे, हमने वो निर्णय लिए और सबको साथ लेकर लिए।
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that Deendayal Upadhyaya always believed that only a strong nation can contribute to build a better world.
जब हमारा देश समर्थ होगा, तभी तो हम दुनिया की सेवा कर पाएंगे, एकात्म मानव दर्शन को सार्थक कर पाएंगे। दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी भी यही कहते थे।
And focusing on Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Prime Minister said that Deendayal Upadhyaya envisaged an India that is self-reliant not just in agriculture but also in defense and weaponry.
आखिरी पायदान पर खड़े व्यक्ति का भी जीवन स्तर कैसे सुधरे, ईज ऑफ लिविंग कैसे बढ़े, इसके प्रयास आज सिद्ध होते दिख रहे हैं। उज्ज्वला योजना, जनधन खाते, किसान सम्मान निधि, हर घर में शौचालय, हर गरीब को मकान, आज देश एक एक कदम आगे बढ़ते हुए इसको सिद्ध करता हुआ गौरव के साथ विकास की राह पर चल पड़ा है।
The centre has made it absolutely clear that the government respects the freedom of speech and also the right of citizens and the right to criticize. But it will not tolerate the misuse of social media platforms against the nation. Replying to a question on the Rajya Sabha, the Union Minister for IT and Communications, Ravi Shankar Prasad, he said that social media has a big role in Digital India, in the Digital India program. But if the social media is used for violence or fake news, strict action will be taken. Let's listen to what he said.
सोशल मीडिया का दुरुपयोग अगर हिंसा, फेक न्यूज, वैमनस्य बढ़ाने के लिए किया जाएगा तो कार्रवाई होगी, ये हम बहुत विनम्रता से कहना चाहते हैं। सर, दूसरी बात, अगर सोशल मीडिया का दुरुपयोग करके कोई चुनाव को भ्रष्टाचार से प्रभावित करने की कोशिश करेगा तो सख्त कार्रवाई की जाएगी, ये भी हम कहना चाहते हैं। जहां तक आप फेक न्यूज का सवाल है सर, मित्रवर प्रकाश जी यहां बैठे हुए हैं सर, एक फेक न्यूज को बस्ट करने का हमने प्लेटफॉर्म बनाया हुआ है और जो फेक न्यूज डालते हैं तुरंत उसका करेक्शन भी यहीं आ जाता है। तो आज इस सदन के पटल से, चाहे वो ट्विटर हो, चाहे वो फेसबुक हो, चाहे वो लिंक्डइन हो या कोई हो या व्हाट्सएप हो, मैं विनम्रता से आग्रह करूंगा, भारत में आप काम करिए, आपके करोड़ों फॉलोअर हैं, हम उसका सम्मान करते हैं, पैसे भी कमाइए, लेकिन भारत के संविधान को आपको पालन करना होगा।
He further said that the government has made it clear that if double standards are adopted by microblogging sites and social media platforms, then it will be forced to take action. That's the government will be forced to take action. He also said that such platforms will not be allowed to spread hatred.
वॉशिंगटन के कैपिटल हिल पर जब रैंसैकिंग होती है, पुलिस को कार्रवाई करना पड़ता है, तो कुछ ये माइक्रो ब्लॉगिंग कंपनियां उसके साथ खड़ी हो जाती हैं, और जब यहां पर लाल किले पर हमला होता है जो भारत की गरिमा का प्रतीक है तो उसके विरोध में खड़ी हो जाती हैं। ये डबल स्टैंडर्ड नहीं चलेगा, ये सारी कंपनियां जान लें।
And speaking in his capacity as Law Minister, Ravi Shankar Prasad also said that the centre is committed to safeguard and maintain the independence of the judiciary and the freedom of the media, but it is equally committed to safeguard the safety and sovereignty of the country.
न्यायपालिका में प्रामाणिकता चाहिए, भ्रष्टाचार से मुक्ति चाहिए, जो मामले आए उसमें कार्रवाई चाहिए, सरकार भी कहती है और कोर्ट ने भी किया है। तीसरा विषय जो है सर, इसको आप किस रूप में लाएंगे? तो सर, मैंने पहले भी कहा, जो न्यायपालिका में कुछ उनकी जो चिंताएं हैं, उन चिंताओं का एक सार्थक निराकरण करके हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की अगुवाई में न्यायपालिका की निष्पक्षता और स्वतंत्रता के प्रति हम लोग प्रतिबद्ध हैं।
And my colleague Vishal Barrister now joins us from Parliament. Well, Vishal, a clear message going out that, there's a lot of debate about social media platforms, but India's stand is made pretty clear by the Minister today.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Mark. Yes, absolutely. India has made it very clear to all social platforms that in the name of freedom of expression, the Constitution of India cannot be circumvent. And also, the minister also said that Article 19A very clearly has some reservation as far as freedom of expression is concerned.
Right.
And he also expressed displeasure on the delayed compliance of the diktat of the Indian government as far as some URLs were concerned with hashtags regarding farmers, and the government is very much unhappy. Rather, the government is also mulling action against the officials, higher authorities of Twitter India. Last night they had a meeting with the higher officials of Twitter India, and the message has been conveyed to them very clearly and very strongly. Mark?
Indeed, and if we look at this, these statements in context, Vishal, because you know, the social media platforms have now almost behaving like they are behaving like a law unto themselves, because they have across several you know, countries. There are no borders, and when there are no borders, you know, philosophically there are no restrictions in a sense. So they believe that that's the way they operate. The idea of trying to put in these restrictions is a matter of you know, of debate and also an authority, and the governments have to be firm. What do you think? I mean, how do you assess the situation?
Well, the minister made it very clear that you can have different parameters. What happened in US, we all saw at the Capitol Hill, the way Trump supporters ransacked the national property of the United States of America. And here in what happened at the 26th of January, when a group of hooligans, I would call, they tried to attack the national heritage. So the minister made it very clear, and under Article 69, I beg your pardon, under 69 Act of the IT, it is mandatory for anybody to follow the norms of the land. And the minister made it very clear that the social platforms will not be given free for such fake news, for spreading fake news, for spreading violence, and also for spreading terror in the country, because this is our land and it is governed by the Constitution of India. You have a majority government at the center, and the government is keenly, very closely watching all that is happening, and it would not allow the social platforms to have their way, because this is India and you have to follow our law, which is governed by the Constitution of the country. Mark?
Right, we leave it there. Thanks very much, Vishal Barrister, for those inputs on this particular statement of the minister concerned, the Law Minister and the Minister for IT and Communications, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. Moving on then to our next story, the Union Home Minister Amit Shah flagged off the fourth round of the BJP's Paribartan Yatra from Kuch Bihar in the poll-bound West Bengal, and addressing a public meeting on the occasion, he lambasted the Mamata Banerjee government, the dispensation there of the state. And he said that the time has come to give the BJP under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi a chance. Let's listen.
ये ममता दीदी आपका लिस्ट ही नहीं भेजती है, आपका बैंक अकाउंट नहीं भेजती है, मोदी जी कहां से भेजे? अब आप बताओ भाई, आपने तो उनको मुख्यमंत्री बनाया, कुछ बिगाड़ा है ममता दी का? आपने बिगाड़ा है, मगर वो आपके 6,000 रुपया रोक कर बैठ गई। चिंता मत करिए, भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार बना दीजिए। पहली ही कैबिनेट में जो आपका 12,000 रुपया चला गया, उसके समेत अगले साल का 6,000 रुपया, 18,000 रुपया आपके अकाउंट में ट्रांसफर करने का काम।
Well, Amit Shah also promised the Rajvanshi sect that the BJP will respect and preserve their culture and also their language, which has so far been neglected by several state governments.
पहले कम्युनिस्ट आए, कांग्रेस थी, तृणमूल कांग्रेस आई, मगर ये राजवंशी क्षेत्र के संस्कार, संस्कृति, साहित्य, उनका नृत्य, संगीत, भाषा, इसका सम्मान नहीं हुआ। मैं आपको वादा करता हूं कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी की बंगाल में सरकार की स्थापना होने के बाद 500 करोड़ के खर्च से यहां पर एक राजवंशी सांस्कृतिक केंद्र की स्थापना इसी स्थान पर कर हमें हमेशा के लिए राजवंशी समुदाय की महान संस्कृति को हम आगे बढ़ाएंगे।
With yet another significant achievement, India has become the fastest country in the world to achieve over 70 lakh vaccinations against COVID-19. India has accomplished this feat in only 26 days, while it took 27 days for the US, 48 days for the United Kingdom to reach these figures. India has also been the fastest to touch the 6 million mark a few days ago. Until this morning at 8 a.m., that is more than 70 lakh people, in fact 17,114 is the exact number of beneficiaries, have received the vaccination under the countrywide COVID-19 vaccination exercise. The total cumulative vaccination coverage of the country, as we mentioned, was that number, 70 lakh. 17,114, and it includes 57 lakh 5,228 healthcare workers and 13 lakh 11,886 frontline workers. So as per the COVID data released by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, India's active cases per million population amongst the lowest. It's amongst the lowest globally. 2,923 new confirmed cases were recorded in the last 24 hours in India, the whole country. Now, 11,764 new recoveries registered in the same period. So, India's national recovery rate is now 97.26%, which continues to be one of the highest globally. So, India's recovered cases are at 1 crore 5 lakhs 73,000 and 372. So the gap between the active cases, the recovered cases, it continues to increase, and that stands now at 1 crore 4 lakh 30,810. Well, Argentina has approved the emergency use of the India-made Covishield vaccine. The Indian ambassador to Argentina, Dinesh Bhatia, in a tweet, he said that the Argentine Drug Agency and MAT, they've authorized that the Made in India Covishield vaccine can be used for emergencies, and he termed it as a step in the right direction to effectively address this pandemic. The CSIR National Aerospace Laboratories, they are involved in the development of 165 composite parts of the LCA Tejas. The use of technology developed by CSIR NAL in the LCA Tejas has resulted in a 40% reduction in the part count. That's the number of fasteners by half, and 30% reduction in the assembly time and associated costs when compared to the conventional metallic airframe. So the usage of composites has led to an overall weight reduction of 20% in the frame of the LCA. The development of composite technologies has led to significant cost savings and foreign exchange of about 300 crore rupees, and overall revenue generation of about 3,047 crore rupees for our country. Tapas Bhattacharya, in fact, caught up with the chief scientist of the National Aerospace Laboratories in Bangalore. Let's listen to what they said.
Joining me is Dr. Ramesh Sundaram to talk about the composite material that has been used in LCA along with other aircrafts in the CSIR's NAL laboratories.
Composite is very simply putting two different materials together and you get a synergetic effect. So when we talk about aerospace, we talk about what are called as polymer matrix composites. So it has got two components. You got a reinforcement and you got a matrix. And typically the most common reinforcement for carbon are carbon fiber composites. Carbon gives exceptionally high strength, high stiffness, and we use the resin as epoxy. So when you put these two together, you get a composite which is of specific gravity 1.6 compared to an aluminum alloy which is about 2.6, 2.7. And so you get something like a 25% weight saving. The LCA composite percentage is more than 90% by surface area and 45 to 50% by weight. And what an impact it has made, if you look at that slide, an investment of 100 crores has led to by the time we finish the LCA program and supply about 125 aircrafts, we would have saved 3,000 crores. See, the future of composites is dynamically changing. We're looking at next generation of composites. These are thermoplastic composites. So these are reprocessable, where there are no recycling issues. World is moving in a big way, and maybe by 2030 a lot of these will get converted. So the cost will be cheaper and the reprocessing issue will be resolved. So we are trying to incorporate sensors at low cost where they tell us completely about the state of health of a structure. So we get diagnostics. Suppose somebody drops something over here, what is the location of damage, what is the damage size, and that is the diagnostics. And the prognostics is what happens to this damage over a period of time. So we are trying to build a whole SHM management system for our future aircraft. This is where probably our regional transport aircraft, we are going to incorporate all these in a big way.
So that was Dr. Ramesh Sundaram telling us that the future is composite and India is leading it big way in the local for vocal mantra that the Prime Minister has been talking about. With camera person Jaishankar, this is Tapush Bhattacharya, DD India, Bangalore.
An important statement on Atmanirbhar Bharat there. Moving on then, in Chennai, the election commission officials, they met with the representatives of political parties, the police officials as well as the district electoral officials and reviewed the ongoing preparations. Chief Election Commissioner Sunil Arora, he released 6 books which are related to poll awareness in the state, and he said that the commission, it's bound to the conduct of free and fair COVID and inducement-free elections. This is what he said. And he also added that all the requests and the appeals of the political parties have been duly considered. The Chief Election Commissioner said that the Commission is expecting higher voter turnout in this assembly election.
Elections are due for 234 assembly constituencies, General 188, SC 44 and ST 2 in the state. Tamil Nadu elections have consistently witnessed a high voter turnover. In fact, and we expect that these elections will have an even higher voter turnover. Commission is, as you are aware, committed to conduct the forthcoming elections in a free, fair, peaceful, accessible, inclusive, very important for Tamil Nadu, inducement-free and COVID-safe elections.
COVID-safe and inducement-free elections is what the the Chief Election Commissioner is committed to. Moving on then, and now let's take a look at what's making news across the globe. The US President Joseph Biden said that the Pentagon, it would review its strategy towards China, looking at the pivotal areas including intelligence, technology and Washington's military footprint in the region. And well, the review will be among several others that the Pentagon is carrying out, and this range from troops in the Middle East to the policy towards NATO. Both countries are at loggerheads over issues from technology to human rights to Chinese military activities in the disputed South China Sea, with each accusing the other of deliberately provocative behavior. Under Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, the Pentagon made countering China its top priority, something the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has signaled it will continue. So speaking during a visit to the Pentagon, Biden said that Austin had briefed him on the new China task force that would look at the military's strategy related to China. Biden also said that China and issues related to it would require government agencies working together, along with bipartisan support in Congress and strong alliances. A U.S. official speaking on the condition of anonymity said that a 15-member task force, it would be created at the Pentagon, and it will review the strategy and present recommendations within 4 months.
We need to take on the dangers and opportunities of emerging technologies, enhance our capabilities in cyberspace, ensure that we are positioned to lead a new era of competition from the deep sea to outer space. And we need to meet the growing challenges posed by China to keep peace and defend our interests in the Indo-Pacific and globally. Today, I was briefed on a new DoD-wide China task force that Secretary Austin is standing up to look at our strategy and operational concepts, technology and force posture, and so much more. The task force will work quickly, drawing on civilian and military experts across the department to provide within the next few months recommendations to Senator Austin on key priorities and decision points so that we can chart a strong path forward on China-related matters.
The prominent women's rights activist Loujain Al-Hathlouli has been released from a Saudi prison after nearly 3 years behind bars. And in a case that has drawn international condemnation, the 31-year-old Hathalol was detained in May of 2018. She was sentenced in December to nearly 6 years in prison for allegedly seeking to change the Saudi political system and harming also national unity is what the charge was. Hathalol had campaigned for women's right to drive and also to end the Saudis' male guardianship system. Hathalol still faces a 5-year travel ban ordered by the Saudi court. Well, the White House has said that President Joe Biden has expected Riyadh to improve its human rights record, including releasing political prisoners. Speaking at the Pentagon on Wednesday, as we saw there, Biden opened his remarks by hailing her release.
Before I begin, I have some welcome news that the Saudi government has released a prominent human rights activist, Lojane Lowell, L-O-O-L, from prison. She was a powerful advocate for women's rights, and releasing her was the right thing to do.
Well, an update now on Trump's impeachment trial. The impeachment trial gathered steam on Wednesday, with Democratic lawmakers laying out their evidence that the former president, Donald Trump, incited an insurrection by exhorting thousands of supporters to march to the Capitol last month. The 100 senators, most of whom were in the Capitol during the deadly January 6th assault, they sat through videos which recounted the graphic details of the violence as Trump supporters sought to block the peaceful transfer of power, a hallmark of democracy. Now, among the notable moments were when the impeachment manager from Pennsylvania, the Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, she cheerfully recounted the moment that the mob broke into the Capitol.
At 2:30, I heard that terrifying banging on House chamber doors. For the first time in more than 200 years, the seat of our government was ransacked on our watch. Someone shouted up to us, "Duck, then lie down, then ready your gas masks." Shortly after, there was a terrifying banging on the chamber doors. I will never forget that sound. Shouts and panicked calls to my husband and to my sons.
This was not a coincidence. None of this was. Donald Trump, over many months, cultivated violence, praised it, and then when he saw the violence his supporters were capable of, he channeled it to his big, wild, historic event. He organized January 6th with the same people that had just organized a rally, resulting in substantial violence, and made absolutely sure this time these violent rallygoers wouldn't just remain in place.
But what President Trump did was different. He didn't tell his supporters to fight or be strong in a casual reference. He repeatedly, over months, told them to fight for a specific purpose. He told them their victory was stolen, the election was rigged, and their patriotic duty was to fight to stop the steal.
Well, we were listening there to the Democratic managers in the Senate, but on Trump's side, his lawyers, in fact, had argued that Donald Trump is protected under the freedom of speech, which is the hallmark of democracy, and whatever he said was basically under the freedom of speech. And moving on then, an update now on Myanmar situation. The military government in Myanmar has stepped up actions against leaders of Aung San Suu Kyi, led the National League for Democracy, the NLD. A close aide to the ousted state councillor Aung San Suu Kyi, Ko Thin Sui, was arrested by the army on Wednesday. The recent arrests also included local government officials and officials working for the Election Commission, which had refused to back the military's allegations of widespread electoral fraud in the November election, which swept Suu Kyi's NLD to power. So protests continued for the 6th day as the workers came out onto the streets of Naypyidaw in support of the civil disobedience movement against the Myanmar army government on Thursday. At some places, the bank employees and ethnic groups were also reported to be coming out protesting against the military government of Myanmar. So thousands of people have joined demonstrations in the main city of Yangon and in the city, which is the capital, Naypyidaw. Hundreds of government workers, they marched in support of the growing civil disobedience campaign, which was started by the health workers there. Meanwhile, a protester who was shot is still in intensive care in the capital, and her sister, who was also at the protest, said that the chances of her sister surviving are slim. So the protests are the largest in Myanmar in more than a decade, reviving the memories of the almost half a century of direct army rule and spasms of bloody uprisings until the military began relinquishing power in 2011. Meanwhile, in the United States, they have denounced what is happening in Myanmar, and they've announced that they are going to freeze the US $1 billion in Burmese government funds held in the United States. The President, Joe Biden, said that the US is announcing a series of actions to impose consequences on the leaders of Myanmar in that coup there. And he said that he has signed a new executive order to sanction against the military leaders who've directed the coup, as well as their close family members.
I'm announcing a series of actions that we're taking to begin imposing consequences on the leaders of the coup. The U.S. government is taking steps to prevent the generals from improperly having access to the $1 billion in Burmese government funds held in the United States. We will identify at first round of targets this week, and we're also going to impose strong exports controls.
And time now for news from the world of sports. And here's Anil Thomas with all the action. Over to you, Anil.
Well, thank you, Mark. Starting first up, let's take a look at Australian Open, the first Grand Slam of the year. Delayed start, but day 4 of the championship. And defending women's champion Sofia Kenin knocked out of the Australian Open, losing in straight sets to Kia Kanepi in the second round. The American 4-seed was beaten 6-3, 6-2 in just 64 minutes on the Margaret Court Arena. Kanepi dominated throughout, hitting 22 winners to Kenin's 10 and saving all 7 break points she faced at the park. Unseeded Kanepi will now face 28th seed from Croatia, Donna Vekic, in the third round. In another women's match, Karolina Pliskova is into the Australian Open third round for the 7th year in a row after a convincing 7-5, 6-2 win over former semi-finalist Daniela Collins on the Rod Laver Arena. Pliskova will face 25th seed Karolina Machkova next. On the men's half of the draw, 7th seed Andrei Rublev reached the Australian Open third round with a straightforward victory over Thiago Monteiro on day 4 in Melbourne. The 23-year-old Russian saw off the Brazilian 6-4, 6-4, 7-6. He will next take on 39-year-old Feliciano Lopez as the Spaniard fought back to defeat Italy's 31 seed Lorenzo Sonego 5-7, 6-3, 3-6, 7-5, 6-4. Well, out of football, Barcelona had a bad night in office on Wednesday night in Seville and have a tough deficit to overcome in the Copa del Rey semi-finals thanks to a 0-2 loss to Seville in the first leg. Barcelona struggled to attack for 90 minutes and Seville had very little trouble staying compact at the back and scoring in key moments to win at home and open up a solid gap ahead of the second leg next week. Well, on the FA Cup, Manchester City's machine rolls on unparalleled. Pep Guardiola's side cruised to a record-breaking 15 consecutive win, and from the moment Raheem Sterling doubled City's advantage, it was clear Swansea would become their latest prey. It was not a perfect night as one of their players limped off and Morgan Whittaker put up a goal back on debut for the championship side, but Manchester City nevertheless rolled into the quarterfinals of the FA Cup with Gabriel Jesus superbly taking a strike. Perhaps that's been the pick of the moment of this particular win. Well, on to Everton. Everton reached the FA Cup quarterfinals after defeating Tottenham Hotspur in a 9-goal spree, with Everton winning 5-4 at the Goodison Park. A magnificent contest swung in both teams' favour before Carlo Ancelotti's hosts, showing huge reserves of resolve and fitness, finally striking the decisive blow when Burnett fired home in the 7th minute of extra time. Well, that's all the wrap that we have in sports. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Anil, and I guess that's all the time we have for in Midday Prime today. Thank you very much for watching, and we continue to watch DD India for all the latest news and updates. Thanks for watching again. Namaskar.